Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. My name is Ariella Coombs, and I'm a career coach here at Work at Daily. I'm filling in for JT today. So I'm excited. I'm excited for you all to be here. So as people are kind of trickling in, I just want to go over a couple of things. First off, today, I'm going to talk a little bit about age discrimination because we've been getting a ton of questions about that on our website. And I really want to address a couple of things and give you guys some insight on that. So we'll be going over that today. And of course, after that, I'll be taking some of your questions. I will try my best to get to all of the questions, but unfortunately, I can't guarantee that I will be able to get to all of them today, as this is only a 30-minute broadcast. And we do have a lot of questions sometimes, so I will try my best. But if you don't get your question answered, you can always join us inside Work at Daily, and you get a guaranteed answer every time. So I'll do my best, but we'll see. Well, hopefully you can get your question answered today. In terms of asking a question, please make sure that when you're typing it into the chat, that you use question in all caps and then put in your question. It just makes it easy for our moderator, Jen, to figure out which ones are questions that I need to answer today. Okay? Awesome. All right. So what else am I missing here? Be sure to like, comment, subscribe during this broadcast if you love watching these videos and want to see more of Office Hours every week. We do this every Wednesday from 1 to 1:30. So definitely check this out every week, because if you want to get some more insight on your career or your job search, this is the place to be. Okay? Awesome. All right. So age discrimination. Like I said, we've been getting a ton of inquiries about this. People coming to our website feeling like they're at risk for age discrimination because they're over a certain age, or they feel like they've been dealing with it in their job search and it's been holding them back. Okay. So obviously age discrimination is illegal, and it's, you're not supposed to be doing that as a hiring team or an employer or anything. It's illegal, but it does happen all the time. And it's very hard sometimes to really pinpoint that it's age discrimination that's happening. Okay, so you have to be proactive and realize that at some point in your career, you're going to have to deal with this. You get over a certain age and you just need to figure out ways to stay relevant and to have a proactive strategy to kind of fight this, okay? Because it does happen all the time. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is that a lot of this is based around perception. Okay, so this is why it's so important for you to brand yourself starting as soon as possible. Personal branding is essential to both your job search success and your overall career success, because if you can brand yourself effectively, people are more likely to recommend you, recognize you, and share opportunities with you. So you want to make sure that you're branding yourself effectively no matter what your age, because that's really going to help you down the line in your career to secure opportunities, and not have to worry so much about age discrimination. Okay. The other thing that you really need to do, no matter what your age, is focus on your networking strategy, because when people know you and they can recognize you and they understand what kinds of value you can offer to employers and what kinds of opportunities are right for you, it's a lot easier to get your foot in the door no matter what age you are, because if they can vouch for you, it's going to be a lot better than just sending in a resume without the dates of your employment or the dates that you got your degree or anything like that. That's something that's down the line. People are going to figure out how old you are. But if someone can vouch for you in the hiring process, somebody within the company or somebody that has some kind of clout can say, this person is really great and he or she would be a great fit for this role, that's going to hold so much more emphasis in the hiring process than any of those other small techniques. Okay, so networking and personal branding are essential when you feel like you're going to be dealing with age discrimination, because those are the two most effective ways to kind of beat that. Okay, but today I kind of want to go over a few common situations and problems that people are experiencing with this age discrimination in their job search. Okay, and I have my trusty list of situations and common kind of excuses and what you can do about it. Okay, so let's get started here. So the first thing that people kind of associate with age discrimination is, the first excuse is, oh, you're not tech savvy enough. You're not going to be able to keep up. Okay. And that's a perception that employers will have, that you're not going to be able to keep up with the rest of the team who they might be younger and they might have grown up with technology and they can, whiz on the computer and it's perfect. But if you're giving that perception that, you're not tech savvy enough or you can't keep up, it's not going to do you any favors. And it doesn't matter what age you are, because honestly, you could be, 20. And if you're giving off that impression that you're not tech savvy in a world that's completely surrounded by technology, it's really going to hurt you in your career. So you want to make sure that you're branding yourself as someone who is not only tech savvy, but keeps up with the trends, keeps up with everything, and stays relevant, focuses on that. And the best way that you can do that is to upskill. Figure out what areas you need to upskill and level up in your career and your type of work, especially when it comes to technology, because that's going to help you brand yourself to employers as someone who can keep up, someone who's tech savvy, someone who gets it. Okay, so that's a huge excuse that we hear from both sides, employers and job seekers, is the whole not being tech savvy enough and not being able to keep up. So that's something that you need to address as a job seeker and as a professional. So the best way to do that is to upskill and brand yourself. Okay. And a common thing that we hear, about this is, like if you're constantly saying, yeah, like, I'll send my resume in through the snail mail, or I'll fax my resume. If you're saying things like that, it can kind of tip off employers, or some of those outdated strategies, like on your resume, if you're using an objective statement, if you're using that outdated cover letter strategy, it really can tip that off that you're not keeping up with, current trends. So be very careful in terms of everything that you're doing, because everything that you do it comes back to your brand. So if you're putting that objective statement on there on your resume, it's saying you're branding yourself as someone who is not up to date with the latest trends. Okay. So things like that can really, tip employers off, and the red flags. So you want to make sure that you're keeping up with those things. Okay. All right. So the next thing is, you have an old school way of thinking, or you're closed-minded, so we get this a lot, which is, unfortunate, because, we hear this a lot from professionals is, I always did this, a certain way at my last employer. Why should I change? And this is horrible for employers to hear, because they want somebody who's going to come in, not only bring enthusiasm and experience, but they're going to be ready and willing to try new things, innovate, be creative, bring something new to the table. If you're constantly going in with the mentality of, this is how I always did it, you're not going to keep up, and you're going to be a little bit hard to work with, because people are going to constantly try to innovate. And if you're always shutting things down, saying this is not how we did things, it's going to be a bad reflection of you as a professional and in your brand. So you want to make sure that you're careful about saying things like that, because it can be a red flag to employers that, you're not thinking necessarily ahead. And in a world where we're always trying to think 2 steps ahead, this is so important. So what you need to do in this case, if this is the perception, is to share some examples during the interview of times that you worked on projects that were innovative projects. So you brought new and fresh ideas to the table. You need to be thinking about examples that really showcase that you're not closed-minded, you're not just old school, you are thinking ahead, and you're constantly trying to innovate and be better. Okay, so this is very important if you're dealing with this type of situation. Okay. All right. So the other excuse here that I have for you is, so if you have a bad attitude or a chip on your shoulder, you don't want to work with the younger generation, or you don't want to be managed by somebody who's your daughter's age, or you don't want to have a younger boss than you. So that kind of thing really is a red flag for employers, because if you don't know how to work with all kinds of people, if you can't be managed by someone who's younger than you, if you can't work with people who are younger than you, that's really going to be a problem, because that's not only going to set off a bad work dynamic for everybody in the team, it's going to mess with the culture. You're just not going to work effectively with each other, and you're going to hold yourself back. So it's very important. So if you're thinking about, like, I can't possibly work for this company because my boss would be my daughter's age, and I don't know if I can deal with that. You have to change your mentality, because there are so many more millennials going into the workforce. They're in the workforce and they're moving up, because people are retiring, they're moving up. And so chances are you're going to have to be managed or at least work closely with someone who's younger than you. And so you have to be able to showcase that you can do that effectively, because if you can't work well on a diverse team, that's going to be a problem for an employer, because you're essentially a service. You're a business of one, like we always say, and you are there to provide a service. And if you can't do that, or you cause problems just with your attitude in the company culture and the environment, it's going to cause some issues. So you might not think, like, it might even be innocent, saying like, yeah, like, you're my daughter's age. Like, this is crazy. Little comments like that can actually send a big red flag that you're going to, have an issue with this. So how do you combat this? You bring up examples again in the interview of how and when you've worked with younger professionals, or you've worked with a wide variety of professionals in different backgrounds, different ages, different whatever. You collaborated with them. You maybe even talk about, a younger mentor, or a time that you had a younger boss, and, kind of walk them through that relationship and how it worked and why it worked, and how you learned and grew from that experience. That's so essential, because if you're worried about this happening to you, you have to show in those examples that prove that you're not going to be a problem in the workplace. Okay. So this is key. Absolutely. Okay. And then the final one that we get, this is probably the most, or the biggest issue that people have when it comes to age discrimination, is, the excuse is you're overqualified. Okay. So the employer is saying, yeah, you're overqualified, and they're perceiving you as, it's not having too much experience necessarily. It's expecting more money because you have so much experience, right? So if you find yourself saying, I made this much, or I'm expecting to make this much money because I made that in my last job, that's just not how it works. Unfortunately, you're probably going to make less depending on the role, depending on the industry, and you have to know it's competitive. But please know that just because your resume is extensive in 4 pages, and how you have all this experience, and, you can essentially turn them off, because they're going to say, okay, this person has so much experience, they're going to want a lot of money for that. And they got paid this much at this company, so they're probably going to want to get paid that much here. And that's just not going to happen. So you need to be proactive and shut that down from the get-go. Okay. So you have to go and research salary rates on Glassdoor.com, payscale.com, and salary.com, and figure out what the competitive rates are for that type of role in that industry, and even in your location, because it can vary depending on the location. But you need to have a realistic idea of what you're going to make when you jump over to this role, and figure that out beforehand. You don't necessarily bring it up first, but they're going to ask you, what type of salary did you make in your last role? What are you expecting in this particular role? You need to be prepared for that, because that's the biggest thing when you're labeled as overqualified is the money, because they think that you're going to want to have more, you're going to want to expect more money because you have so much experience. Okay, so if they ask you that, or when they ask you that, how much money did you make in your last role? Be honest and say, yeah, I made this much money, but I understand that things have changed, and I looked online and I did some research, and I can see that the competitive rates are between this much and this much, and so I'm expecting something in this range, for this next opportunity. Okay, so very simple, and that can really help your chances of moving on to the next level in the hiring process, because they know that you're not just expecting to make this huge paycheck based on how much experience you have, or anything like that. So be proactive about that. So essentially, if you feel like you're dealing with age discrimination, the main thing that you have to do is ease the employer's concerns and assumptions. Because let's be real, these are all assumptions. You might not be any of these things, and I guarantee that you're not. I'm guarantee, but if you're giving off this vibe, or if your personal brand isn't on point, then you really need to focus on being proactive and building that network, building your brand, and figuring out how you can combat these little nuanced situations to show that, yes, you can work with younger people. Yes, you understand that the salary isn't going to be as much as your last role necessarily. yes, you understand technology and you can keep up and you can stay relevant and all of that stuff. So it's important to understand these, figure out your plan of attack and build your brand around it and start really networking strategically, because that, again, is probably the number one thing you can do is network. Okay. So if you need more help with this, Jen is going to pop in some links to a few more videos on age discrimination that we did on our channel. So she'll share those with you. And of course, if you have any specific questions about age discrimination, dealing with it, you can always join us inside of our program. Okay. We deal with this all the time. We have a whole channel for this. Okay. And you can always talk with us, the coaches, figure out how you can deal with certain situations, how you should phrase things and approach certain challenges. So you can join us inside our program if you want to do that and get real coaching on that. Okay. You can do that. You can go over, we can give you a coupon code, just office hours, all caps, and you can save $10 a month. So definitely check it out if you need more help with this, more in-depth help with age discrimination. You feel like you can't seem to figure out the branding or the networking or any of those other things. Okay. So hopefully that helps. All right. So let's get to some questions, shall we? Okay. Let's see here. All right, question. I'm coming out of a 2.5-year gap. I have 15 plus years in financial services, and would I apply to a junior or mid-level job instead of senior level? So I think that depends, honestly, on the opportunity. But with 15 years of financial services, if that's the type of role that you're going into, I think you definitely mid-level is probably where you're at, and you might even consider a senior role. But that's something that you should be talking about with the hiring manager, the recruiter. How much experience, what types of skill sets, what kinds of projects will I be working on, and really fully understand the opportunity to say, yes, I got this. Like, I have this under control. I have the experience. I have the skill sets. I can market my value and the results that I got in the past 15 years. The 2.5-year gap it's not ideal, but this is something that you can fill in. Okay. So if you volunteer, if you did any part-time work, depending on, if you had to take off time from work because you had to deal with caring for family members, you can actually say that in your resume because it's a job, right? And you need to kind of account for what you were doing in that 2.5-year gap. What they want to know is that you weren't just sitting at home on your couch doing nothing for 2.5 years. You need to ease their concerns and assumptions and say, okay, this is what I've been doing. I've been, keeping up on my certifications. I've been doing training. I've been, again, volunteering, part-time jobs. What is it that you've been doing the last couple of years to kind of make up for that gap? And you can explain that. But yes, really emphasize your skill sets, your quantifiable accomplishments in this area. And again, work on that personal brand. We have a great new course inside Work It Daily, the Ultimate Guide to Personal Branding. It really helps you figure out exactly what you need to do to develop an impressive personal brand that's really going to engage employers and other professionals, and clients, even potential clients. So again, it comes back to branding in the end. So think about what you can do to fill that gap. What have you been doing the last couple of years? Volunteering, certifications, trainings, any education. Did you go back to school? Think about those types of things, because you're going to have to explain that, whether it's in an interview or on your resume. And that's really key. But if you're talking about, what types of level, again, talk to the recruiter, talk to the hiring manager, figure out exactly what this role is going to require and say, okay, which one do you feel like I'm a better fit for based on my experience? And just have that conversation. And if you can't have that conversation, I would make a judgment call and start with a mid-level and say, I think my skill sets are really going to be useful in this area. This is where I can add value. And I would love the opportunity to, grow with the organization and continue adding value. Okay. So hopefully that helps. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Question. I have a disclosure to tell an employer. Should I wait till the final interview or do it now. Done 3 rounds. Hiring manager says he wants to fly me to headquarters for the 4th. Waiting on the official invite. Okay, so depending on what you need to share, it depends. Okay, so I think it's very important to be transparent, especially in the event that, you know, they're flying you out to headquarters, or I'm assuming they're paying for everything. If this is something it's very important. I mean, it really depends on what it is, but you probably want to be upfront and be honest, because the last thing you want to do is get flown out there for the final interview and then share this information that could be a deal breaker, and they'll, you know, have some negative feelings toward you. So I would be transparent, honestly, upfront. I know it's not ideal. If it was closer and you didn't have to fly out, I would say wait. But where they're investing in this, they might be ticked off if this is a deal breaker and they flew you out, and, you know, it can damage some trust there. Okay, so that's my personal opinion. I would probably be upfront, depending on what it is, though. You know, if it's a real deal breaker, you might want to disclose that. Okay. All right, question. What tools do you offer for personal branding? So great question. So in our new course, The Ultimate Guide to Personal Branding, which you can buy, it's separate from our subscription, by the way. It's a separate course because it includes a ton of different courses. It's very in-depth, and it also includes 30 days of coaching. So you get the 30 days of coaching in addition to all these tools I'm about to share with you. So essentially we talk about we have your tutorials, and JT O'Donnell breaks down every step of her journey into developing a personal brand. So if you might not know this, but she has over 2.5 million followers on LinkedIn. She's built a huge brand. She's spoken at, LinkedIn's big conferences, Glassdoor. She has a column. She has developed an amazing brand that people recognize. They go, honestly, everywhere I go, people recognize who she is and like what she does. And she's developed this great brand based on the strategy that she's teaching everybody in this course. And essentially she's talking about, you know, your beliefs, your unique branding attributes. She's talking about how you can develop what kinds of content you need to be sharing with people, how to brand yourself on your resume and your LinkedIn profile, things like that. So essentially you get the personal branding tutorial course. Then you get actually a bonus course on resume writing, which breaks down every step. Then you get a bonus course tutorial on breaking down every part of your LinkedIn profile and what you should be doing on there to optimize it and brand it. You're getting a ton of PDFs and exercises to do to really nail down and define your brand. So she breaks it down. So it's really, it's actually really fun to do these exercises because you're essentially building a content calendar for yourself and your brand based on, you know, little things. And it's actually really fun to go through. We also have templates in there for your resume and so on, and additional tutorials in there to walk you through how to create graphics and do some graphic design, that kind of thing. So there's a ton of stuff included in this, in addition to the 30 days of career coaching that you get when you sign up for this course. So Jen, actually, if you could share that link to the personal branding course, that would be excellent, because it is very fun and it's so important. Like I've been talking about, personal branding is key, no matter what your age, no matter where you are in your career, and no matter what you do, okay? It's so important, whether you want to get hired, whether you want to get promoted, whether you want to get new clients, so important, okay? And if you're ignoring it, it's not great because you have a personal brand, whether you like it or not. Like, I think one of my favorite quotes is, your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Like people have assumptions about you. They know things about you, or they associate things with you. And so if you're controlling that by being proactive in creating a personal brand, or not creating it, but kind of harnessing your personal brand and controlling it a little bit, you can control that narrative, what people are saying about you, because it could be good or bad, right? Or it could be nothing. So there are 3 things that people, if you're not working on your personal branding, there are 3 assumptions that people will have about you. So it's, you're not tech savvy, like we talked about. You have something to hide, and you don't take yourself seriously. All right. So one thing that we focus on in the course is teaching you that branding is not bragging. Okay. Branding is essential to your career because it shows that you care about your career, that you're focused in this area, and that you're committed to doing it and you're passionate about it. Okay. So definitely check it out if you haven't already. I love personal branding. Personal branding and cover letters are my favorite things to do. I could talk about them all day long. So definitely check it out if you have the opportunity. Okay. Let's see. Question, should you include short contract work for longer employment gaps on a resume or just address it in the cover letter? Okay, so if you were working, if you had contract jobs or work, absolutely include it, especially if you're trying to fill those gaps, because it shows that you are working. It shows that you are doing things. Now, one thing we see all the time on resumes is people, for their gaps, they have a gap, they'll say, I had a consulting firm and I just created my own business while I was in between jobs. And that's great if you had clients and you had projects, but if you didn't do any work and you're just saying that you were a consultant, it's kind of like lying on your resume, because they're going to want to ask you about the projects that you worked on. They're going to ask questions about that. So don't just list something there if it's not true, or if you didn't actually do anything in that particular area. But contract work, if you had contract work, if you're working, you can absolutely list that in your resume. Okay. Great question. Okay, I'm confident that I follow the recommendations of Work It Daily, but my job search is stuck. Ooh, questions are going everywhere. What else can I do to get over the hump and finally land a job that advances my career? Okay, so this happens. Everybody gets stuck once in a while, and it's frustrating, and you feel like you're not moving forward no matter what you do. So the best thing that you can do is to, especially if you're in your program, I'm not sure what you're doing or what courses that you've been through, but go back to the job search plan tutorial and go through the modules, because this is essentially not only our overview of what strategy we use to job search and be disruptive about it, but it's also how you build your foundation. Okay, so you need to have a foundation in order to create an effective job search strategy. Okay, so this course, the job search plan, is designed to help you figure out, okay, maybe I'm not thinking about this in my interviews, or maybe I'm not doing this on my resume, or maybe I'm just not clear on what my next role is going to be, or my next move. Something that we see constantly, and I'm not saying that you've done this, but people typically try to skip over module 2, which is a really in-depth course. I'm not going to lie. It's all about understanding who you are as a professional, understanding your strengths, your unique qualities, what types of roles you want to pursue, what you value, that kind of thing. And it's really in depth, and it can take a few days, honestly, to get through it. And so people typically are like, no, I'm just going to zip over to my resume and get that all figured out, and I'll figure the rest out later. But this is essential because it helps you identify what is important to you, so you can figure out what roles are really going to not only make you happy, but it will allow you to really target your job search on roles that are good for you and fit your experience and what you value. So if you feel like you're stuck, go back to that module and redo it, because it could be that you're applying to jobs that simply aren't a fit. Okay, simply aren't a fit for what you want or your experience or anything like that. I would also definitely go through and make sure that you're following up with people. Make sure that you are constantly networking. Again, it comes back to networking. It's the best use of your time, in my opinion, is networking, because you're having conversations. Not only are you learning about companies, you're building relationships. And again, if people get to know you and where you add value, they're going to want to recommend you for opportunities and share things with you and vouch for you down the line. So if you're feeling stuck, networking, go back to the job search plan, figure out go back to the drawing board and figure out that strategy and say, okay, what else can I be doing? What am I missing? Am I going in the right direction? And the best thing, honestly, if you're in the program, is chat with our coaches. Figure out, pinpoint exactly where you think something is kind of going wrong, and we can help you work through that situation so you can get past it. Okay. So if you're in the program and you have access to the coaching, absolutely reach out to us, because we can help you work through those specific situations that you feel stuck in. Okay. And we can direct you to the right courses. We can direct you to the right resources, and we can give that insight that you need in order to get over that hump. Okay. Awesome. Okay. I have time for one more question. It's 1:30, so we'll sneak in one more. Okay. All right. Question. What are your thoughts about mid-50s professional man dyeing hair for a younger perception by employers? Okay, so we definitely have thoughts on this. So you can do this, but in the end, like, eventually it's going to come out. Your age is eventually going to come out there. People are going to understand. You can do this. Something we hear all the time in Work Daily and on our website and from our clients is, yeah, I'm 50 plus, but I look like I'm, 40, or I don't look my age. And honestly, that doesn't matter, because like we talked about early on, if you're giving off the perception of not being tech savvy, being outdated, all those other things that we talked about, it doesn't matter if you dye your hair or not, because your brand, they're making assumptions about you and your brand because of those things. So it comes back to branding, controlling that brand. Show them that you're tech savvy by upskilling. Okay. Show them that you're not outdated. You're not closed-minded by focusing on innovation and fresh ideas. Show them that you don't have a chip on your shoulder, or you can't work with younger people. You're not used to working with all kinds of people. You need to be upfront about that and figure that out, and tell them that you can do that kind of thing. Okay. So you can do that. Absolutely. But it comes down to those key branding, activities to kind of address and ease those concerns that employers are going to have, because again, those are the real red flags. Okay. Honestly, it doesn't matter what age, right? As long as you can do the job and you can provide value to that employer, if you can do it well, great. That's all they want, right? So you need to address those assumptions and those concerns. And it's really about, being proactive and branding and networking. Okay. So go ahead, go crazy, but you really need to be thinking about those fundamental red flags that employers are seeing. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Again, if you're interested in learning more about Work Daily and our services, we do have a coupon code for you. It's just office hours, all caps. You can save $10 a month on our subscription. You can cancel anytime. There's no contracts or startup fees or anything like that. So there's really no risk involved. If it's not a fit for you, it's okay. All right. So you can just cancel and move on. But I would really encourage you to check it out, because we do provide some very in-depth coaching, can give you some great insights, and we have a ton of resources and tutorials. Honestly, the resume tutorial and the personal branding tutorials are some of my favorite ones in the program. They're so useful. I even use them. Okay. So definitely check it out if you want more help and more insights on your career planning. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Definitely join us next week on Wednesday between 1 and 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. And of course, if you have any questions for us, please email us at support@workdaily.com. Okay. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.